and he is shooting for 13 and a half sacks in a contract year. Can he get there? Welcome back. Good afternoon, Tampa Bay. 3:04 and your ride home. Hour number 2 of The Drive on this beautiful football Friday here on The Drive with the World Cup getting underway for Team USA tonight as they'll take on Paraguay at 9 o'clock. Rays are also out on the left coast, so you have Team USA there at SoFi Stadium, and the Rays will be in Anaheim. A lot of sports action taking place in that L.A. area later on tonight. You got so much happening in the world of sports, and that includes the Buccaneers. What's going to happen with Baker and his contract? Is that going to get done? What about Yaya Diaby and his lofty expectations? Not just for himself, but for the Buccaneer team. He also said 13-4 for the Buccaneers in 2026. I love the confidence. So is that realistic? Ladies and gentlemen, he's with us right now on a Football Friday on the Central Florida Behavioral Health Network WDA hotline. Learn more at cfbhn.org. Great Buccaneer news and analysis can be found at pewterreport.com. And Scott Reynolds is with me here on this Football Friday. What's up, Scotty? How are you, bud?
Hey, Tom. How you doing, man? Good to hear from you.
Great to hear from you. It was good to see you yesterday out there.
Yes.
Yeah, it kind of felt like training camp, didn't it?
Oh, man.
Oh, my gosh.
It wasn't even like super hot from the sun. It was a little overcast, but just the sweltering humidity. It just felt so sticky, and it made me really appreciate the fact that I'm not wearing a helmet.
Yes, no
mean,
helmets, no pads, nothing
yeah,
like that. Boy.
yeah,
But let's talk about that because Yaya Diaby was in studio yesterday, and we talked to him about how physical some of these OTA practice appear
I
to
know.
be. I mean,
Yeah,
Todd Bowles is turning up the heat, pardon the pun. Is
that's
it
right.
because of how last season ended, Scotty? What do you think?
I think so. There has been a concerted effort on the personnel side, also on the coaching side, to get more physicality, bigger, tougher, more physical, more energy. And I listen as somebody who called for Todd Bowles to be fired at the end of last year, because this team had really gotten stale. The defense had been soft for a couple of years. I mean, this team just had a stale energy about it. And I listen. I'm not one of these people where like I'm going to stand on a hill and die for a lot of things. You can change my mind if you show me new evidence. And I got to hand it to Todd Bowles and Jason Light. I really, really like what they've done. They have radically changed this Buccaneer defense. They have injected a lot of energy, big dudes, physical guys, some toughness. I think that's going to show up size at the linebacker position. I mean, Levante David, what, 6 foot, maybe 225 pounds. And you got Alex Anzalone, 6'3", 234 pounds. Josiah Trotter, 240 plus pounds, 6'2". They've just changed the physical makeup of this defense. And I think Zach Robinson is going to have his own spin on the Liam Cohen playbook. But I've seen a lot of Liam Cohen-esque stuff in OTAs, and that has me optimistic that this team is going to get back to scoring maybe close to 30 points per game, be in the top 5 in a couple categories. Scoring would be a great one to be included in, but I think the defense is going to make some strides. So I don't know of a better offseason in hindsight, even without the big splash trade for Max Crosby or the big splash signing of Trey Hendrickson. The splash came in the form of Ruben Bain, and I think you felt it too, with the energy from your callers who are Bucs fans. That Ruben Bain draft pick was a game changer for the Bucs fans' psyche this offseason. And I feel like this team's heading in the right direction. I really do.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that. And I had Yaya Diaby in studio for an hour, and I asked him about Ruben Bain, and he's like, look, I mean, the guy's all business. I mean, he gets out
Yes.
there.
Yes.
He's very serious about what he does, which is great. I mean,
Yeah.
he's got a business-like approach, and I think he's going to help Yaya the way he helped Akeem Mesidor when he was at Miami, and they played off each other as well. But Yaya mentioned 13 and a half sacks, Scotty. I asked him, and he was like, he was kind of hesitant, and then he put that number out there. Is it possible?
Yeah, it is possible, and I'll tell you why. Because, and Yaya even said this in his press conference at One Buccaneer Place just a couple weeks ago. Who are you going to double team? Ruben Bain, Kalijah Cansey, Vita Vea. Yaya Diaby, that's nickel. And then if they're in a base 3-4 defense, you're going to have Ashawn Robinson out there too with a 5-man front. Who are you going to double team? And for every tight end and back you keep in to help chip, that's one less target for the quarterback to throw to, right? So it's not far-fetched. And I've always likened Yaya Diaby's game to Neil Smith. I'm not sure if you know who Neil Smith
Yeah,
is.
Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah,
Back in the day, yeah.
absolutely. He played opposite Derek Thomas. And I grew up in Kansas City. I went to a lot of Chiefs games. I was a Chiefs fan back in the day when I grew up there as a kid. And Derek Thomas was the headliner. He was the dynamo pass rusher. He had over 20 sacks, I think, as a rookie. I mean, just a phenomenal talent, generational talent, Hall of Fame guy for sure. And Neil Smith was drafted earlier than Derek Thomas, but he had some modest production. I'm looking at it right now. 2.5 sacks as a rookie in 1988 before Derek Thomas arrived in 89. Then with Thomas, he had 6.5 sacks. Then he had 9.5 sacks. Then he had 8 sacks. This is 4 years into Kansas City, the last 3 of which I just shared with you were playing opposite Derek Thomas. But then once Derek Thomas just became such a menace, such a perennial Pro Bowler, where he drew all the attention, here's the next sack numbers for Neil Smith. 14.5 sacks, 15 sacks, 11.5 sacks. Those 3 years in a row, Neil Smith was the leading sacker in Kansas City, not Derek Thomas. And why is that? He benefited from playing opposite a true alpha star. And I think that's what can happen with Yaya Diaby. Neil Smith didn't have double-digit sacks in his first 4 years. This is year number 4 for Yaya Diaby. And I think that he can get that if Kalijah Kancey's healthy. If Vita Vea comes back in great shape and stays healthy. Vita Vea played all 17 games for the first time of his career last year. And then you put Ruben Bain over there. Yaya has proven to us he can get 7.5 sacks pretty much by himself. But if he has the opportunity to get some cleanup sacks, right? Guys the quarterbacks that are running literally right into him and in his direction, trying to escape Ruben Bain, I think that he can get 5 or 6 cleanup sacks. I really do. And you add it all up, and you're getting close to 13.
And if you add all that up, you're talking about a huge next contract for Yaya Diaby. He's in a contract year, and I asked him about that, and he's like, he's trying not to focus on that, but how can you not? Because he saw the money that was handed out to some of the edge rushers, including Jalen Phillips over the winter, and he knows that if he can get the 10-plus sacks, he's going to be right there.
Yes, for sure. And not even that. There's some other guys, Boye Mafe, right, and some other players that the Yaya is already better than, right? And and I think that Jalen Phillips, he's got a first-round pedigree because he was a first-round pick, but I don't believe he's at double-digit sacks yet. So he's kind of in the same boat as Yaya Diaby, and Diaby's been healthy. Jalen Phillips has missed some time. So, if I'm not saying that Yaya Diaby's necessarily a $30 million edge rusher. I don't think that Jalen Phillips is a $30 million edge rusher.
I agree
Carolina
with you.
really overpaid for him, but that's not Yaya Diaby's fault. That's kind of what the market will bear. But I think it's pretty safe. Yaya is going to get 22+ million, maybe 25, depending on where the market will be next year. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Buccaneers just don't commit to him before training camp and get one of those deals done like they did with Zion McCollum and Luke Gedeke. I bring those two names up because people look at Zion McCollum's deal and like, oh God, they paid him before the contract year and he really underwhelmed. Okay, that's true, but they paid Luke Gedeke and he had a fantastic year. When he came back from his foot injury, it wasn't like he even left. I mean, he was an absolute rock solid right tackle. I think he's a Pro Bowl caliber performer. So you can pay some players before their actual contract season, and it can work out. And sometimes, for whatever reason, the pressure of the big contract or whatever, maybe they take the foot gas a little bit. Sometimes it doesn't work out, but usually, and they found this out with Antoine Winfield Jr. If you don't pay the player beforehand and the player blows up and has an All-Pro type year, well, it's kind of a double-edged sword. The price tag goes way up, right? But then the flip side of that is the player had a fantastic season and helped your defense or your offense, right? So sometimes you're happy writing that check, but then, when the production dips down the next year, like it did with Winfield, you're like, whoa, the Bucs really overpaid for this guy. So it'll be interesting to see when they decide to give that contract extension to Yaya, whether it's before free agency next year or before training camp this year.
Scott Reynolds, PewterReport.com, is with me here on The Drive on WDAE on a Football Friday. Speaking of contracts, Baker Mayfield, we know Jason Light and Todd Bowles both want him back, but this is also a business, Scott.
Yep.
I don't, based on the conversations that I've had with some people, it doesn't feel like it's going to get done anytime soon. When training camp rolls around, is he going to have that contract or not?
I don't think so, unless he and his side want to take a lesser deal. But I think Baker Mayfield, I think there's a couple markers he looks at. And Baker's a very competitive guy. And sometimes with these contracts, it's not about the money. I mean, Baker Mayfield's already said, I've already got generational money, right? $100 million is $100 million, right? He's made that. But what this is for these alpha competitors like Baker is it's not about the actual dollar amounts in terms of cash. It's about I'm as good as you are, or I'm better than you are, because it's a competition. And there's a couple ways that these guys compete. They compete on the field for a Super Bowl ring and division titles and playoff berths and all that. They also compete in the arena of money as well. And you can sit there and say, there's no way Baker Mayfield's worth $55 million. He's not on par with even Jared Goff, much less Matthew Stafford, but then Baker would look at it and say, well, I mean, I'm as good as Jordan Love, if not better. And I'm as good, if not better, than Trevor Lawrence. Those guys make $55 million. Oh, and you know what? I think I'm better than Dak Prescott, who can't do anything in the playoffs. I have as many playoff wins as he does in his career. He's making $60 million, right? Which was dumb for the Cowboys to do a couple of years ago. So I think that's how he looks at it. And Brock Purdy's making, 53 million, and he probably feels like he's better talent than Brock Purdy. And I think too, Deshaun Watson's making 48, and that sticks in the craw of Baker Mayfield, who's making 33 million on average. So I think that this ultimately goes into a situation where it plays out during the season, and the contract gets done before free agency next year. I wouldn't be surprised if it gets done before training camp, but I'm not expecting it to. I think that they're going to force Baker to play in the contract year. And I don't think Baker has any problem with that, TKras, because he was
I don't think so either
in 2023, right? When Antoine Winfield Jr. had to play in the contract year and Mike Evans had to play in the contract year, he's had to do that twice now in Tampa with Baker on the team. And he saw this team be incredibly fair to both Evans and also to Winfield. And they even made Winfield the highest paid defensive back in the league. So I think that Baker, at this point, if the deal doesn't get done, he's fine. It's only going to cost you more money. I'm only going to go out and ball even harder and drive the price up. And again, if you're the Buccaneers, it's a double-sided sword there. It's like on one hand, you're like, it's going to cost us a little bit more. On the other side, it's like, well, holy crap, man. Like, what happens if Baker does have a fantastic year and he takes us to the promised land, right? I mean, that's ultimately what the goal is.
And look, I think the Buccaneers would be thrilled. If that happened, if he takes them to the promised land, they would have no problem paying him $60-65 million a year. But
right.
You could probably get ahead of it and probably pay him 50 to 55 now or 60 to 65 later, and maybe they'll roll the dice and say, you know what, let's just play it out and see what happens on the other side of it. And I think that based on what I'm hearing, it sounds like that's going to happen. So
I think it will. And you know what? I'm fine with that. I think Baker's fine with that.
I think
and
so too.
For any Bucs fans out there that might think, well, gosh, you don't want this weighing on Baker Mayfield and all that pressure during the season. Hey, this is a far cry from 2023. You don't think there was more pressure on Baker Mayfield in 2023 than there is now? Baker has already entrenched himself into the community, entrenched himself into the team, proven what he can do here. He's already made $100 million here. He's not hurting for a paycheck. And he's already reestablished himself as a franchise caliber quarterback, whether it's here or somewhere else. In 2023, he had played for the Browns, the Panthers, the Rams, and the Buccaneers, all within a 12-month calendar year.
Mm-hmm.
So he was on the verge of going from being a face of a franchise in Cleveland to truly being a journeyman quarterback. If Baker Mayfield did not succeed in 2023, his name would be in the same sentence as Marcus Mariota, Jameis Winston, first-round guys that were now just relegated to being backups, right? And sometimes you get a Sam Darnold out of the mix, and he revives the career, but a lot of times that's not the case, right? So there's more pressure for Baker Mayfield back then than there is right now. So I have no problem with how Baker's going to handle this team. He performed swimmingly well in taking this team to 9 wins and having to deal with a rookie play caller in Dave Canales and learn a whole new, teammate locker room situation and a whole new offense, and he thrived. So I'm expecting, even better and greater things with a Baker Mayfield that won't even be under as much pressure as he was in 2023.
Yeah, he can handle it. He's used to it, and that would be an interesting dynamic to watch if it ends up being that way. Scott Reynolds, PewterReport.com. You wrote about this at PewterReport.com. Benjamin Morrison. Stop me if you've heard this before, Scotty. He's hurt again. You were asking Todd Bowles about it. It's a leg injury. Is it a hamstring? What's going on there?
Well, I asked Todd because I wanted some specifics. I said, is it a hamstring injury? And Todd, it's a leg.
Yeah, it's a leg.
He's Dr. Bowles does not get too specific when it comes to that. I will say this: I'm glad that Dr. Bowles was wrong about the diagnosis for Bucky Irving, because he all scared us when he said summer or fall. We actually saw, and you and I, Tom, were there, saw with our own eyes. Yep. Bucky Irving back on the practice field there. So good that Bucky's back. Not great that Benjamin Morrison is out. We'll see if he participates. He said he's a little nicked up. Does that mean he just needs a couple days of rest and he'll be ready to go for the mandatory minicamp? We'll see. If he misses mandatory minicamp, then I have to, play the uh-oh button again and kind of hold your breath a little bit, because, did this team draft another oft-injured corner to replace an oft-injured corner in Jamel Dean? I don't know. It's looking that way. I hope it's not, but time will tell.
I got to tell you, I think Jamel Dean is the guy they're going to miss the most, not Levante David or Mike Evans, Scott.
I agree. I totally agree.
Yep.
I totally agree.
And hopefully, he can get back on the field. You also wrote in your Fab Five this week, Kenny Gainwell, speaking of Bucky Irving, it was good to see him out there, but Kenny Gainwell appears to have had a really smooth transition, at least so far, to this offense.
Super smooth. He has gotten rave reviews, A+, gold star on the fridge, from the personnel department, from the coaching staff. He has been an A+ guy. And it's interesting because that was a really kind of eyebrow-raising free agent signing, was it not? I mean, 2 years, $14 million. That's a $7 million contract, $7 million per year for a backup running back. But that's not what Todd Bowles thinks of him. He says we have 1A and 1B here, and Kenneth Gainwell and Bucky Irving. And I'm really glad that Gainwell is going to be really integrated into this. I really think this is going to be more of a true two-back system, maybe even a three-headed monster with some Sean Tucker runs in there as well. Just because we saw Bucky Irving kind of get run down last year, right? They used him a lot early on. There was the injuries. I think less is more with Bucky. I really do. And if you go back to his successful rookie season, a lot of the times Rachaad White was the starter. He would get the first carries, kind of soften up the defense a little bit, and Bucky would come in as a change of pace back and run wild, and he would actually end up being the more productive back rather than Rachaad, even though Rachaad got the starts. So I hope that Zach Robinson kind of leans into that. And I'm not saying Bucky shouldn't be the starter. I think he will be the starter, but I'm just saying really split the carries up, man. I mean, 10 or 12 touches per game for Bucky Irving, I think will net more in terms of a higher average, in terms of more, longer runs, bigger production, a healthier Bucky Irving. And I think they have to look at this running back room as a room, not just as, Bucky Irving and then other running backs. And I think Josh Grizzard leaned way too much into Bucky last year. And I think that's why Rachaad White was ready to leave, because how many times did we see Rachaad White rip off a 33-yard run in the first quarter or a 39-yard run and then just completely disappear and not get any carries after that? And it frustrated him because Rashad was definitely the number 2 back. And I want to say that this is probably going to be a 1A, 1B situation like what Bowles and Robinson are saying. And I think that's a great thing.
It is, and we know how much Zach Robinson loves to run the football. I think you're going to see a lot of those same run game concepts incorporated here. He's at pewterreport.com. The great Scott Reynolds, great Buccaneer news and analysis there. Great job as always, Scotty. We'll talk to you next week. I appreciate you.
Looking forward to it, man. Take care.
You got it. The great Scott Reynolds. He'll be at the mandatory minicamp next week. We'll be there as well. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Kenny Gainwell. And you heard Scott talk about the money terms. If you remember when he came on with me, right when the Bucs signed him, he told me that half the league called him at the start of free agency. So when you have that much interest, obviously that's going to drive your price up. But he looks good out there. And between him and Bucky, I think they will employ a hot hand approach. And I think Sean Tucker is probably going to be like the short yardage guy, the goal line guy, I'm thinking. He had a nose for that last year. But I like what Kenny Gainwell brings to the table. You know, in that offense that the Steelers ran last year with an aging quarterback, he was the MVP. He averaged almost 5 yards a carry and caught more than 70 passes. And he's still only 27. So I think there's a lot of juice left. There's a lot of juice left in his tank there. All right, 888-388-0957. You want to comment on that? The Baker contract, where do we stand with that? It sounds like he's not going to get that deal before training camp. I would, if I had to bet one way or the other, I would bet that it doesn't happen. Are you okay with that as a Buccaneer fan? Some really interesting texts rolling in, too. We'll get into that when we come back. Also, when we come back, Rays baseball tonight. The Rays are out west. You heard from Eric Neander, breaking developments on some injured guys making their way back and the 3 things to watch on this Rays West Coast swing. We'll have that for you.